Stoicism, an ancient philosophy forged in the fires of adversity, offers truths that modern men often ignore until life forces their reckoning. While society sells quick fixes, superficial success, and emotional suppression as markers of masculinity, the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, taught that true strength lies in confronting discomfort, mastering the mind, and embracing life's impermanence. These truths are not theoretical. They are battle-tested tools for navigating betrayal, loss, and uncertainty. Yet men often dismiss them as too harsh or unfeeling, only to realize too late that Stoicism isn't about hardening the heart, it's about freeing it. Now we are going to discuss 10 brutal but liberating truths that redefine resilience, purpose, and what it means to live fully. Number 1, vulnerability is strength, not weakness. In contemporary society, there is a prevalent belief that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. A belief that men, in particular, are often taught to reject emotions such as fear, doubt, and pain in favor of stoic silence or facade of toughness. The notion of toughness often translates into hiding one's true feelings, avoiding vulnerability, and maintaining an outward appearance of control. Yet this mentality is not only misguided, but ultimately harmful to mental health and well-being. The Stoics, notably Seneca, rejected the cultural expectation that one must suppress their emotions to be strong. They understood that embracing vulnerability is not only natural, but an essential part of the human experience. Seneca, who faced exile, political persecution, and personal hardship, wrote, "Tears relieve the soul." This quote is a profound reminder that vulnerability is not a weakness to be hidden, but a natural expression of humanity that can bring relief, healing, and insight. In Stoicism, acknowledging vulnerability is seen as a sign of courage, not fragility. The Stoic approach encourages individuals to face their emotions head-on, to be honest with themselves, and to use their vulnerabilities as stepping stones toward personal growth and inner strength. Modern psychology supports this Stoic view, demonstrating that suppressing emotions does not eliminate them. Instead, it amplifies their power in negative ways. Studies have shown that men who suppress their emotions are more likely to experience mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and stress, as well as struggles in their personal relationships. By refusing to acknowledge vulnerability, they build emotional barriers that limit their capacity for true connection and resilience. However, vulnerability, when embraced, does the opposite. It fosters emotional intelligence, builds trust in relationships, and allows for deeper self-awareness. Rather than seeing vulnerability as something to be ashamed of, Stoicism teaches us that it is something to be valued. Vulnerability allows us to connect with others on a genuine level, to cultivate empathy, and to find the courage to grow through adversity. It dismantles the unrealistic ideal of perfectionism and empowers us to embrace our humanity, including our flaws and imperfections, as part of our strength. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we break free from the cycle of emotional suppression and cultivate resilience. We move from the mindset that vulnerability is a flaw to understanding that it is a core component of human strength. The ability to be emotionally honest and open gives us the freedom to experience life fully, without the fear of rejection, failure, or judgment. It is this willingness to embrace vulnerability that allows us to build meaningful connections and live a life aligned with our values, rather than hiding behind walls of defensiveness and self-doubt. True courage, as the Stoics would argue, is not in the avoidance of vulnerability, but in the ability to acknowledge and embrace it, using it as fuel for personal growth and authenticity. First, embracing vulnerability is acknowledging your fears and insecurities. Take time to reflect on one fear or insecurity you've hidden or repressed. Write it down in detail. Don't just acknowledge its presence, but explore it fully. What is this fear tied to? What are the thoughts or beliefs that make it so difficult to face? After writing, share it with a trusted confidant or therapist, someone who can listen without judgment. This process of externalizing and sharing your vulnerability helps to take away its power over you. By putting your fears into words, you give yourself the opportunity to reframe them and confront the emotional weight they carry. The act of sharing these fears, rather than hiding them, makes them less intimidating and can foster a sense of relief and self-empowerment. You will soon realize that your fears lose their grip on you once you confront them with honesty and openness. Vulnerability is not just about acknowledging deep fears. It's about creating a habit of openness in everyday interactions. Practice embracing discomfort by introducing vulnerability into your conversations. Begin with small steps, such as admitting when you don't have all the answers, or when you're struggling with something. A simple, "I don't know," or "I'm struggling," can open up new dimensions of connection with others. It's a powerful reminder that we are all human and we don't need to have all the answers to be valued. As you continue practicing vulnerability, you will notice that the discomfort of being open lessens, and you'll begin to embrace it as a tool for personal growth. Vulnerability in communication cultivates deeper relationships, builds trust, and fosters emotional resilience. It also dismantles the unrealistic expectations of self-sufficiency that many men are taught to uphold. By admitting when you need help or support, you not only allow others to show up for you, but you also build a network of trust and mutual support. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, and you'll find that embracing discomfort in these small ways creates lasting changes in how you approach vulnerability. Ultimately, embracing vulnerability is about shifting your perspective on what strength truly means. It is not about perfection or invulnerability. It is about being authentic, honest, and open, regardless of external pressures. Through journaling your fears and embracing vulnerability in conversations, you create a foundation for emotional growth, trust building, and resilience. These practices will help you move beyond the false ideal of stoic toughness and toward a life of genuine strength, one that is grounded in emotional honesty, compassion, and self-acceptance. Number 2, you can't control others. In the modern world, one of the greatest sources of frustration for many men is the constant, often fruitless, attempt to control or change others. Whether it's trying to fix a partner's behaviors, micromanaging coworkers, or attempting to shape friends into idealized versions of what we think they should be, the energy spent in this pursuit is a path to endless exhaustion. Stoicism teaches a fundamental truth that cuts through this chaos: the dichotomy of control. This is the recognition that the only thing truly within our power is how we choose to respond to the world around us, not the world itself or the people in it. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of ruling an empire riddled with betrayal and political intrigue, reminded himself, "You cannot control others, but you can control how you respond." His words serve as a powerful reminder that external events, and especially others' actions, are entirely beyond our control. Yet the way we respond to those events, the emotional responses we allow to dictate our behavior, is something we can shape through self-mastery. The more we obsess over the choices and behaviors of others, the more we feed feelings of resentment, frustration, and powerlessness. We exhaust ourselves, chasing the unattainable goal of altering someone else's nature. In contrast, when we focus our energy on mastering ourselves, we cultivate peace, resilience, and agency. We come to understand that the real source of control in our lives lies not in trying to bend others to our will, but in the power we possess over our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. Attempting to change others is ultimately a recipe for frustration, as human nature resists being molded by someone else's expectations. People act according to their own values, beliefs, and personal histories. They have their own free will, and it's a futile endeavor to try and reshape that will for our own comfort or convenience. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. External events and the behaviors of others are often outside our control, and fixating on them only diverts us from focusing on what we can change, ourselves. Focusing on our own development, rather than trying to control others, is the path to tranquility. It is the foundation of emotional maturity, to accept that we can only influence our reactions, not the actions of those around us. By relinquishing the desire to control others, we free ourselves from unnecessary conflict, frustration, and resentment, and we create space for personal growth, inner peace, and true agency. One of the most important steps in embracing the Stoic reality of self-mastery is taking an honest look at where you've been expending energy trying to control others. Reflect on the relationships in your life, whether personal, professional, or social, and list 3 areas where you've attempted to change or fix someone. This could be a partner's behavior, a colleague's approach to work, or a friend's attitudes or habits. Acknowledge how much mental and emotional energy you've invested in trying to alter these people or situations. Now, rather than continuing to focus on changing others, direct that energy inward. Replace the effort of trying to control someone else with the development of 3 personal habits that empower you. These could be simple yet impactful practices, such as committing to morning meditation, establishing a consistent exercise routine, or focusing on personal development through reading or learning. When you direct your attention to shaping your own habits, you cultivate a sense of agency and control that doesn't rely on the external world or the people in it. The effort you once put into changing others is now channeled into something that will truly lead to growth, mastering yourself. Another powerful tool for embracing Stoic wisdom in dealing with others is practicing emotional detachment. When you find yourself frustrated or upset by someone else's actions or behavior, remind yourself of the Stoic principle that their behavior reflects their nature, not your worth. This simple recitation can help create a mental distance between you and the emotional turmoil that arises from other people's actions. Recognize that how others behave is a reflection of their own inner world, shaped by their experiences, values, and personalities. It is not a personal indictment of who you are. This mental shift allows you to detach from the frustration of trying to control others and instead focus on your own response. You can choose to respond with compassion, understanding, or indifference, depending on what best aligns with your values and goals. The practice of detachment doesn't mean that you stop caring about others or their well-being. Rather, it means you release the need to control them or make them behave in a way that suits you. By recognizing that their actions are not a direct reflection of you, you free yourself from the emotional weight of their choices. By auditing your energy and practicing detachment, you can break free from the exhausting cycle of trying to control others. Stoicism teaches that true power lies not in the external world or the actions of others, but in the way we choose to respond. The more we focus on our own growth, the less we are swayed by the uncontrollable elements of life. In the end, self-mastery, not control over others, is the key to living a peaceful and empowered life. Number 3. Solitude is not loneliness, it's power. In today's fast-pacing, noise-filled world, the concept of solitude is often misunderstood and feared, especially among men. Solitude is often perceived as loneliness, a negative state that must be avoided at all costs. With the constant distractions of technology, social media, and endless entertainment, many people fear the stillness that comes with being alone. Instead, they surround themselves with noise, seeking solace in the constant buzz of activity to avoid facing the discomfort of solitude. Yet, the Stoics believed that solitude was not a weakness, but a powerful tool for self-growth and self-mastery. Far from being an uncomfortable or undesirable state, the Stoics saw solitude as a place of reflection, a space where a man could strip away external influences and connect deeply with his inner self. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery and enduring countless hardships throughout his life, recognized the profound importance of self-reliance. He famously stated, "No man is free who is not a master of himself." This statement speaks volumes about the role solitude plays in the Stoic worldview. Solitude is not a state of isolation, but rather a powerful opportunity for introspection. It is in these moments of being alone that we can truly understand our deepest fears, desires, and values. Without the noise and pressure of the outside world, we are able to confront our inner truths, our anxieties, our insecurities, and the beliefs that shape the way we perceive the world around us. By spending time in solitude, we cultivate a relationship with ourselves, one that is free from external judgments, and we strengthen our inner resolve. In modern society, we often fill our time with distractions because we are afraid to confront ourselves. We avoid silence because it forces us to face the parts of ourselves we would rather ignore. Yet the Stoics knew that without solitude, there is no self-mastery. The man who cannot sit in silence, who cannot be alone with his thoughts, is a man who has not yet gained mastery over his own mind. To fear solitude is to fear self-awareness and ultimately self-mastery. In contrast, those who embrace solitude are able to develop clarity of thought, strengthen their emotional resilience, and sharpen their focus. It is in solitude that we can examine our actions, reflect on our values, and correct the course of our lives if necessary. Solitude is not a void, it is a space filled with potential. When we avoid it, we signal a dependency on the outside world for validation, constantly seeking distractions to fill the silence. Yet, the Stoics believed that true freedom could only be found in self-sufficiency and inner peace. A man who cannot stand alone, who cannot find peace in solitude, is a slave to the noise and chaos of life. The ability to sit alone with one's thoughts and to experience the world without the need for constant stimulation is a true mark of strength. It is in solitude that we discover who we really are, not who the world wants us to be. In Stoicism, this connection with the self is not seen as an indulgence, but as a necessary practice for living a virtuous life. The philosopher Seneca, who wrote extensively about the value of time and the importance of reflection, understood that time spent alone in contemplation is time spent well. He argued that it is only in quiet reflection that we can truly align ourselves with nature and begin to live in accordance with reason. The pursuit of virtue, for the Stoics, required solitude and introspection. It was through the lens of solitude that one could examine their life, take stock of their actions, and make the necessary adjustments to ensure that they were living with integrity and purpose. Solitude is also where we confront our shadows, the parts of ourselves that we may not be proud of. It is where we are forced to face our vulnerabilities, our weaknesses, and the aspects of our personality that we would rather ignore. But rather than avoiding these truths, the Stoics believed that by confronting them head-on, we could gain strength. When we are forced to sit with discomfort, to sit with the thoughts and feelings we often push away, we are given the opportunity to grow. It is in this discomfort that we build resilience. The more we face our fears, our doubts, and our uncertainties, the more we become equipped to handle the challenges of life. This is where true strength is forged, not in the absence of vulnerability, but in the ability to face it and move forward anyway. The most powerful ways to begin embracing solitude is to intentionally disconnect from the distractions of modern technology. Set aside 30 minutes each day where you turn off your phone, step away from your computer, and retreat into a quiet, contemplative space. Use this time for silence, no screens, no texts, no social media. This is a sacred opportunity for self-reflection. During this time, you can walk in nature, journal your thoughts, or simply sit and breathe. The goal is to create a space where you are free from external influences and can reconnect with your own thoughts. Over time, this practice will help you develop greater self-awareness and emotional clarity, as it allows you to reflect on your life without the constant pull of technology. In this quiet space, you can listen to your own thoughts, clarify your values, and make decisions that align with your true self. By embracing these moments of solitude, you build a greater sense of peace and self-reliance, one that does not depend on the external world. Solitude is also an opportunity to confront the negative voices within us, the inner critic that often sabotages our efforts. These voices are the doubts, fears, and insecurities that tell us we are not enough. The Stoics recognized that silence and solitude are the best ways to face these internal struggles. During moments of quiet reflection, ask yourself, whose voice am I avoiding? What truth am I afraid to hear? These questions are designed to help you probe deeper into your psyche and uncover the beliefs or patterns that are holding you back. The more you confront these voices, the less power they will have over you. Often we avoid solitude because we fear what we might discover about ourselves. But in reality, it is only by confronting these truths that we can overcome them. Solitude offers a safe space to work through the emotional discomfort of facing our fears, insecurities, and weaknesses. The more we learn to sit with these uncomfortable truths, the more we gain the strength to transcend them. By embracing solitude, we reclaim our power. We stop seeking external validation and instead become comfortable with ourselves. We no longer rely on distractions to avoid our own thoughts, but instead use solitude as a tool for personal growth and self-mastery. Solitude is not a punishment, nor is it a sign of weakness. It is a space for healing, growth, and transformation. It is a practice that allows us to clarify our values, strengthen our resilience, and ultimately live a more meaningful life. The Stoics understood this deeply, and so should we. In solitude, we find our true selves. Not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet space where we can hear our own thoughts and discover our own purpose. Number 4. Failure is the only real teacher. In a world obsessed with achievement and success, failure is often viewed as the ultimate disgrace. Many men expend vast amounts of energy trying to avoid failure at all costs, clinging to the idea that it is a sign of inadequacy or weakness. This fear of failure leads to paralysis by analysis, where we hesitate to take risks, fearing that any misstep will define us as failures. However, the Stoics, particularly Seneca, saw failure through a radically different lens. For Seneca, who faced tremendous hardships throughout his life, including the loss of his son and years of exile, failure was not a shameful experience to be avoided, but rather an invaluable teacher, a necessary component of growth. He famously stated, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." This analogy suggests that just as physical exertion builds muscle, so too does failure build resilience, fortitude, and wisdom. It is through failure that we learn the most important lessons in life, the lessons that success cannot teach. In Stoicism, failure is reframed as feedback. It is not an end, but a process of learning and refining. Every failure is an opportunity to reflect on what went wrong, to examine our assumptions, and to adjust our approach moving forward. This reframing of failure allows us to develop a mindset of continuous improvement, where mistakes are not stigmatized, but rather embraced as stepping stones to mastery. The Stoics recognized that setbacks and challenges were not roadblocks, but vital experiences that provide essential feedback for personal development. Instead of fearing failure, we are encouraged to embrace it, to learn from it, and to let it guide us toward our next attempt with greater wisdom and resilience. The modern world often encourages a perfectionist mindset, one that seeks to avoid failure at all costs, leading many to shy away from opportunities for growth. The result is often regret, not from the failures we endured, but from the risks we never took. As men grow older, it is not the mistakes they made that cause the greatest sorrow, but the opportunities they lived slip by. The Stoics would argue that it is better to risk failure than to live a life of hesitation and missed opportunities. Failure, in this sense, becomes an invaluable part of the process, teaching us lessons we cannot learn in any other way. A failure reveals more about our priorities and our approach to life than any success ever could. It shines a light on our fears, our assumptions, and the areas in which we may be half-hearted or uncommitted. In this sense, failure acts as a mirror, reflecting back to us the places where we need to grow. Without the feedback that failure provides, we are left in a state of ignorance, unaware of our weaknesses and blind to the opportunities for improvement. Each failure, then, is a gift, offering us the chance to course correct, to reevaluate our approach, and to become better versions of ourselves. The Stoics would argue that the key to a meaningful life lies not in the pursuit of perfection, but in the ability to confront and learn from failure. The willingness to fail and the ability to embrace failure as a powerful teacher is what separates those who achieve greatness from those who remain stagnant in their comfort zones. It is through repeated failures that we gain the wisdom and strength to push forward, ultimately achieving the success that only comes through persistence and resilience. The road to mastery for the Stoics is built on a foundation of failures, each one serving as a lesson that propels us toward improvement and growth. After experiencing a failure, take the time to reflect deeply on the event. Rather than brushing it off or harboring feelings of shame, engage in a post-mortem reflection process. Write down the following questions. What did I assume about this situation? What were my expectations? What can I adjust in my approach next time? This exercise forces you to critically examine your assumptions, actions, and mindset, and it helps you identify areas for improvement. By treating failure as an opportunity for analysis rather than as a source of shame, you transform each setback into a valuable learning experience. Over time, this practice will help you build greater resilience, adaptability, and emotional intelligence, allowing you to approach future challenges with greater wisdom. To break the cycle of fear around failure, start incorporating small risks into your life. The Stoics believed in the importance of taking action, even when it comes with the potential for failure. Commit to taking at least one calculated risk each week. Whether it's pitching an idea to a colleague, learning a new skill in public, or taking on a challenge that stretches your comfort zone. These micro-failures are low-stakes opportunities that allow you to practice the art of failure in a controlled manner. By gradually building your tolerance for failure and learning to view it as a normal part of life, you will become more resilient and open to taking on greater risks in the future. The key is not to avoid failure, but to embrace it as a natural and necessary part of the growth process. In summary, failure, far from being something to fear or avoid, is the cornerstone of personal growth. Through failure, we gain insights, challenge our assumptions, and refine our strategies. The Stoic approach encourages us to embrace failure not as a source of shame, but as a powerful teacher that can help us grow stronger and wiser with each setback. By reflecting on our failures and embracing calculated risks, we can transform each misstep into an opportunity for growth, ultimately paving the way for lasting success. Number 5, death is your greatest motivator. In the modern world, it's easy to assume that we have all the time in the world. The illusion of endless tomorrows can make us complacent, delaying our dreams, procrastinating on important actions, and squandering our most precious resource, time. The Stoics, however, understood that life is fleeting and unpredictable, and they practiced Memento Mori, the practice of remembering death. For them, death was not a morbid thought to be avoided, but a powerful reminder to live fully and authentically. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher and emperor, famously wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This simple but profound reflection encourages us to recognize the impermanence of life and to act with a sense of urgency and purpose. The Stoics saw death not as an enemy to be feared, but as a catalyst for meaningful action. Death's certainty is the one thing that we can all rely on, and it serves as a stark reminder that time is limited. Every day is an opportunity that will never come again, and we should not squander it on trivialities or distractions. The man who forgets death is the one who spends his days chasing fleeting pleasures, postponing important goals, and avoiding difficult tasks. On the other hand, the man who keeps death in mind is the one who invests his time in what truly matters: his relationships, his work, and his legacy. By remembering that our time on earth is finite, we become more mindful of how we spend each moment. Death becomes a clarion call, urging us to prioritize what is essential, to live authentically, and to make the most of the present. The Stoic understanding of death motivates us to shed the illusion of invincibility and to embrace the urgency of living a meaningful life. In this way, death is not something to be feared, but something to be used as a tool for personal transformation. It forces us to reflect on our values, our actions, and our priorities. When we remember that our time is limited, we are less likely to waste it on things that don't contribute to our growth or the legacy we wish to leave behind. Moreover, death reminds us that we are not in control of how long we have. This unpredictability should not be a source of anxiety, but a prompt to live with intention and gratitude. The knowledge that we do not know when our time will come should inspire us to act now, to take risks, to pursue our passions, and to cultivate the qualities that will endure long after we are gone. To waste time, in the Stoic view, is to disrespect the gift of life itself. The most powerful exercises in Stoic philosophy is to imagine our own death and consider the legacy we wish to leave behind. To make this practice concrete, take time to write your eulogy. Describe the man you want to be remembered as, the virtues you hope to have embodied, the impact you want to have had on others, and the values you want to have lived by. Once you have written this, compare it to how you are living today. Are your daily actions aligned with the legacy you wish to create? Are you investing your time and energy in ways that reflect your deepest values, or are you allowing distractions and trivialities to pull you off course? Writing your eulogy is a wake-up call that helps you recognize the areas of your life that need adjustment and empowers you to live with greater purpose and clarity. Every morning, take a moment to reflect on the fact that today might be your last. Ask yourself, if today were my last day, what would I do differently? This simple yet profound question forces you to examine your priorities and make sure that your actions align with what truly matters to you. It can be all too easy to get caught up in the demands and distractions of daily life. But this visualization brings you back to the present moment and reminds you of the fleeting nature of time. By contemplating your mortality daily, you cultivate a sense of urgency that encourages you to take meaningful actions, focus on what's important, and leave behind the things that don't serve your higher purpose. In summary, death is the greatest motivator for the Stoics because it brings clarity, focus, and urgency to our lives. By remembering that life is finite, we are forced to examine how we spend our time and whether we are living in alignment with our values. The practice of Memento Mori helps us avoid the trap of procrastination and urges us to act with purpose and intention. Through this awareness, we are able to live lives of greater significance, investing our time in what truly matters and ensuring that we leave behind a meaningful legacy. Number 6. Your need for validation will destroy you. In today's world, the pursuit of external validation has become a rampant addiction. From chasing promotions at work to seeking approval on social media, many men tie their sense of self-worth to the praise or recognition they receive from others. But Stoicism teaches that this pursuit is not only futile, it's corrosive. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, warned, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish." This powerful statement reflects the Stoic understanding that the external world's judgment holds no real power over our true sense of self. Seeking validation from others is like chasing a mirage. It's always just out of reach, and when you think you've grasped it, it evaporates, leaving you empty and unsatisfied. The need for validation is a trap, one that entangles men in a never-ending cycle of approval-seeking behavior. Whether it's striving for more social media followers, seeking constant praise from coworkers, or trying to earn the admiration of others through material success or achievements, these external markers of worth are fleeting and unstable. The more you chase them, the less fulfillment you will feel. It's a cycle that leads to dissatisfaction, as you realize that no amount of external recognition can ever fill the internal void. This addiction to validation keeps you tethered to the opinions of others, robbing you of the freedom to truly live on your own terms. The Stoic response to this is clear. True freedom comes from self-syndrome. It comes from understanding that your worth is not dependent on the fleeting opinions of others. Instead, it is rooted in your own values, actions, and internal sense of integrity. When you stop relying on external praise and start validating yourself, you reclaim your personal power. You no longer need to look to others for approval or rely on outside sources to tell you who you are. Instead, you can trust your own judgment and live according to your own standards. This is the essence of Stoic autonomy, living a life that is defined by your own principles, not by the opinions of others. Self-direction requires you to turn inward and focus on what truly matters to you, rather than seeking affirmation from the outside world. When you validate yourself, you no longer feel the pressure to conform to external expectations or to perform for the approval of others. You can act with greater clarity, confidence, and authenticity. You are free from the cycle of seeking validation and can move forward in life with the inner peace that comes from knowing you are enough, just as you are. To break free from the need for external validation, it's essential to disconnect from the sources that fuel this addiction. One practical way to do this is to delete social media for 48 hours. In this period of silence, observe how often you reach for your phone to check for likes, comments, or new followers. Notice how your self-esteem fluctuates based on these interactions. Pay attention to the emotional highs and lows that come with external feedback, and reflect on how much of your sense of self-worth is tied to these external sources. This exercise will help you gain perspective on how much of your identity is influenced by the approval of others, and give you the space to realign your focus on what truly matters. Another powerful exercise is to define your own metrics of success, separate from the approval of others. List 3 personal values that are meaningful to you, such as integrity, curiosity, or kindness. These are the qualities that define who you are, not the amount of praise you receive from others. Measure your success by how well you live according to these values, not by external recognition or accolades. For example, if integrity is one of your core values, success could mean doing the right thing even when no one is watching, rather than seeking praise for your actions. By focusing on your own standards and internal benchmarks, you detach yourself from the need for external validation and shift your focus to self-improvement and personal growth. The Stoic path to freedom from external validation requires daily practice and self-awareness. By detaching from the need for praise and redefining success according to your own principles, you reclaim your power and begin to live a life that is authentic and self-directed. Over time, this will cultivate a deep sense of fulfillment that is grounded in your own worth, not in the opinions of others. True freedom, according to Stoicism, is not about seeking approval from the world, but about living in alignment with your inner values and knowing that your worth comes from within. Number 7, material wealth won't fill your soul. In a world that often measures success by material wealth, men can easily become trapped in a cycle of endless acquisition. From the luxury car that announces success, to the designer watches that signify power, to the sprawling houses that serve as status symbols, modern society seems to place immense value on what you own. The more you have, the more successful you are seen to be. Yet, despite this external validation, Stoics like Seneca rejected the belief that material wealth can lead to lasting happiness or fulfillment. Seneca famously quipped, "Money has never yet made anyone rich," illustrating the idea that no matter how much wealth you accumulate, it can never fill the deeper, more intrinsic needs of the human soul. The pursuit of material wealth can be a trap, one that encourages individuals to focus on the external, on what is tangible, visible, and fleeting, while neglecting the internal. The Stoics argued that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in cultivating virtue, purpose, and inner peace. A man who defines his worth by the car he drives or the clothes he wears is ultimately a prisoner to those possessions. The more he owns, the more he becomes attached to them, and the more these external things begin to control his happiness. This dependency on material things for validation results in a vicious cycle. The more you own, the more you need, and yet the fulfillment derived from these things is short-lived. You may get the fleeting pleasure of acquisition, but it's always followed by a void, a sense that something is still missing. This emptiness reveals the truth. No amount of material wealth can satisfy your soul's deeper hunger. In Stoic philosophy, wealth is regarded as a tool, one that can serve you and others well when used wisely, but not something that should define you. To the Stoics, virtue and character are the true markers of wealth. The accumulation of material goods is neutral. It is how we use those goods and how we respond to their presence in our lives that determines whether they are good or bad. For example, wealth can be used for noble purposes, to support your family, to provide opportunities for others, to contribute to causes that align with your values. However, when wealth becomes an obsession, when it is pursued for the sole purpose of amassing more and more, it becomes a burden. The desire to possess more, to flaunt what you own, to impress others, corrupts the soul. The man who ties his identity to his possessions is at constant risk of losing himself in the process. The Stoic view on wealth teaches that satisfaction and fulfillment come not from what you have, but from who you are. Inner wealth, your values, your character, and your peace of mind, provides the lasting contentment that material goods can never deliver. It's not that wealth is inherently bad or that it should be shunned, but rather that it should never be the center of your life. As Epictetus would say, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few want. True fulfillment arises from the mastery of oneself and the cultivation of virtues that align with nature, such as wisdom, courage, and justice, rather than the endless pursuit of more. To live in alignment with the Stoic philosophy regarding wealth, there are practical steps you can take to detach yourself from material possessions and refocus on the inner wealth that Stoics champion. To begin the process of detaching from material possessions is through a simple but powerful exercise. Purge what is no longer serving you. Choose a prized possession, perhaps something that holds significant value, whether it's a luxury item, a designer piece of clothing, or a gadget, and donate it. Let go of something that you once valued highly, not because it's unnecessary, but because you recognize that true wealth does not reside in things. The act of donating an item that holds value is not only a demonstration of detachment from material wealth, but it is also a way of freeing yourself from the cycle of accumulation. You may feel liberated after this process, realizing that your happiness does not depend on owning things, but rather on cultivating the internal qualities of wisdom, virtue, and peace. Another way to apply Stoic principles to your financial life is through a wealth audit. Take time to track where your money goes. Look at your spending habits and ask yourself some important questions. What am I really spending my money on? Do these purchases contribute to my well-being, or are they driven by a desire for external validation? Ask yourself whether you're buying items to fill a perceived void or to impress others, rather than because they serve a real purpose. This practice of auditing your wealth can help you see how much of your financial energy is going toward things that are superficial or fleeting. If you find that your spending is largely focused on keeping up appearances, try redirecting that energy into something more meaningful, such as investing in personal growth, giving to charity, or saving for a long-term goal that aligns with your values. Stoic practice involves circulating wealth rather than hoarding it. As Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." One way to practice this is to contribute to others through charitable acts or fair exchanges. If you have wealth, consider how you can use it to help others, or invest it in ways that foster collective well-being. Whether it's through donations, helping a friend or family member in need, or supporting causes that align with your values, you can use your wealth to enrich the lives of others, thereby enriching your own life in the process. This circulation of wealth, rather than its accumulation, is the Stoic ideal. Living by the Stoic principles regarding wealth ultimately means recognizing that what truly fills the soul is not external possessions, but internal virtue and purpose. Wealth is a tool, and like any tool, it should be used wisely and with moderation. When you detach from the need for more possessions and instead focus on developing your character, you will find a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment that material wealth could never provide. In doing so, you will achieve true richness, not in your bank account, but in your soul. Number 8. Time is your only non-renewable resource. Time, unlike money or possessions, is the one resource that can never be replenished. Once it's gone forever. Yet modern society encourages a culture of busyness, where men often find themselves consumed by distractions, regrets, and trivial pursuits. Whether it's endlessly scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, or nursing old grudges, the hours slip by unnoticed. In the words of Seneca, life is long if you know how to use it. The Stoics understood that time is a precious commodity, one that, if not spent wisely, can lead to a life of dissatisfaction and wasted potential. Stoicism teaches us that the key to making the most of time is intentionality. Rather than allowing external forces, such as distractions or societal pressures, to dictate how we spend our hours, we must take responsibility for our time. Instead of getting caught up in the regret of the past or obsessing over the uncertain future, the Stoics encourage living in the present moment, making each action purposeful and focusing on what truly matters. This approach isn't about eliminating all leisure or pleasure from our lives, but rather about striking a balance between enjoyment and meaningful pursuits. The Stoics were keenly aware of the brevity of life and the need to prioritize relationships, personal growth, and contributions to the world. In fact, the more we focus on what aligns with our core values and long-term goals, the more fulfilling our use of time becomes. The pursuit of fleeting pleasures, such as chasing status, accumulating wealth, or indulging in distractions, ultimately wastes our most valuable resource. When we spend time chasing the next quick fix or momentary high, we miss out on opportunities for deeper, more lasting satisfaction. A life well lived, according to the Stoics, is one in which time is spent on things that cultivate wisdom, virtue, and connection with others. These are the things that offer true meaning, and they don't depend on external validation or temporary pleasures. In essence, every hour spent on things that don't align with your values is an hour of your life that can never be returned. The Stoics would urge us to reflect on how we are using our time and ask ourselves whether our actions today are leading us closer to a life of fulfillment or pulling us further from it. Time is a non-renewable resource, and each moment is a gift. The question isn't how much time you have, but how you choose to spend it. And just like any valuable resource, how you use time determines the quality of your life. The Stoics lived by the principle that we should aim to live each day as if it were our last, not in a morbid sense, but with a sense of urgency and clarity about what truly matters. And they understood that time once gone cannot be replaced, and so they spent it focusing on the things that aligned with their values, cultivating wisdom, deepening relationships, pursuing meaningful work, and reflecting on their own growth. By adopting this Stoic mindset, you can begin to see time as a precious tool for crafting a life of purpose and fulfillment, rather than letting it slip away in pursuit of fleeting distraction. To begin making the most of your time, there are practical steps you can take to ensure that you're using it in a way that reflects your values and priorities. Start by tracking how you spend your time over a 72-hour period. Take note of everything you do, whether it's working, relaxing, socializing, or engaging in mindless activities. At the end of this period, review your log and identify any time-wasting habits or activities that are not aligned with your value. Perhaps you'll discover that you spent more time on distractions like social media or watching TV than you'd like to admit. Once you identify these time drains, take immediate steps to eliminate or limit them. For example, if you find that you're spending an hour a day scrolling through social media, consider setting a daily time limit or removing certain apps from your phone altogether. Replacing these time-wasting habits with more purposeful activities, such as reading, journaling, or spending quality time with loved ones, can drastically improve the way you use your time. A powerful Stoic exercise to help you realign your priorities is to ask yourself each day, will this matter on my deathbed? This simple question forces you to reflect on the significance of your daily tasks. Are the things you're investing time in truly meaningful, or are they distractions that will have no impact on your legacy or personal fulfillment? By ranking your daily tasks based on this question, you can begin to see which ones are worth your time and which ones need to be let go. This exercise helps bring clarity to your goals and ensures that you're spending your time on things that will matter in the long run. It encourages a mindset shift from mindlessly going through the motions to intentionally pursuing what truly adds value to your life and the lives of others. By embracing these Stoic practices, you can begin to make better use of your time and live in a way that aligns with your values. Time, after all, is the one resource that once lost cannot be regained. It is up to you to make sure that you are spending it wisely on things that contribute to your growth, your relationships, and your legacy. Number 9, relationships demand effort, not entitlement. In today's fast-pacing world, it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that the bonds we share with others, especially loved ones, will thrive on their own. Many men take their relationships for granted, mistakenly believing that loyalty and connection are automatic, unbreakable. However, the Stoic wisdom stands in stark contrast to this belief. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Love the humble art of kindness." This quote underscores the importance of ongoing effort and intentionality in maintaining meaningful relationships. The Stoics understood that love is not a passive feeling that comes and goes, but a conscious choice, a verb, not a noun. To nurture a relationship, you must actively engage with it, offering attention, care, and understanding consistently. Stoicism teaches that nothing worthwhile comes easily, and this includes our relationships. Relationships crumble not because of a lack of love, but because of neglect. When we fail to prioritize our loved ones and take them for granted, even the strongest connections can start to erode. Acts of kindness, vulnerability, and patience must be practiced daily, not just when it's convenient, or when we need something from the other person. Love is sustained through action, whether that means showing up for someone when they're struggling, taking the time to listen without judgment, or offering a sincere apology when we've wronged them. The Stoics would remind us that relationships are a reflection of our values, and how we treat others is a direct expression of our inner character. Far too often, men fall into the trap of expecting others to meet their needs without considering what they are contributing to the relationship. This sense of entitlement can breed resentment and frustration. True fulfillment in relationships comes from mutual respect, communication, and effort. The Stoic approach encourages us to be fully present, to actively show up, and to acknowledge the importance of consistency and kindness in our interactions. It's not enough to expect others to simply understand how much we care. We must demonstrate it through our actions. By doing so, we create deeper, more resilient connections with those we love. In relationships, just as in other aspects of life, we are responsible for our own actions. This means that we must take the initiative to nurture the relationships we value, ensuring that they are built on a foundation of trust, respect, and ongoing effort. Stoicism teaches that we can't control how others behave, but we can control how we show up for them. By taking responsibility for our own actions in relationships, we become more capable of fostering the meaningful connections that bring fulfillment and joy. Relationships, after all, are not to be taken for granted. They require ongoing care, attention, and love to truly thrive. To put this Stoic perspective on relationships into practice, here are 2 simple yet effective exercises. A small but impactful practice that can significantly improve your relationships is to spend at least 1 minute every day fully present with someone. Whether it's your partner, a friend, or a family member, dedicate a full 60 seconds to giving them your undivided attention. No distractions, no phones, no background noise, just your presence. In that minute, listen deeply, acknowledge their feelings, and engage with them fully. This simple act can create moments of connection that deepen relationships and help foster trust and understanding. It may seem like a small gesture, but when done consistently, it becomes a powerful tool for building lasting emotional intimacy and connection. One of the most transformative actions you can take in relationships is to mend any bridges that may have been neglected or strained. If there's a relationship in your life where you've made a mistake, acted out of impatience, or failed to show the care that the other person deserves, practice making a sincere, specific apology. Don't generalize. Be clear about what you did wrong and take full responsibility for it. Apologizing with humility and authenticity can repair damage and demonstrate that you are committed to the well-being of the relationship. Even if the other person doesn't immediately forgive you, your sincerity will strengthen the bond between you and help clear any emotional obstacles. In relationships, as in all things, consistency is key. By incorporating these Stoic practices into your daily routine, you will cultivate deeper, more meaningful connections. Relationships are not static. They require ongoing effort, vulnerability, and dedication. When you approach relationships with the Stoic mindset of active care and responsibility, you can transform them into some of the most fulfilling aspects of your life. Number 10. Anger is a choice, not a reaction. Anger, for many men, is an emotion that often masquerades as a natural, justified response to being wronged, treated unfairly, or disrespected. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that anger is simply a reaction to the external world, something that just happens to us without our consent. Society even often praises righteous anger as a sign of passion, strength, or moral outrage. The Stoics, however, saw anger for what it truly is, not a reflex, but a choice. It is an emotional response that stems from how we interpret and react to external events, and as such it is something we can control if we practice the right mindset. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "Anger is temporary madness." By describing anger this way, Seneca highlights the irrationality that often accompanies it, and the destructive consequences it has on our thoughts, actions, and relationships. When we are angry, our judgment becomes clouded, and we are often unable to see things clearly or respond in a way that serves us. Instead, we act impulsively, without consideration for the long-term consequences of our actions. The Stoic approach to anger is rooted in self-awareness and self-mastery. It's about understanding that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can always control how we choose to respond to them. When faced with an unjust situation, an insult, or a betrayal, anger often feels like a natural response, but this feeling is driven by the story we tell ourselves about the event. "They have wronged me," we might think, or "this isn't fair." These judgments are subjective, and they arise from our attachment to specific outcomes and expectations. But these assumptions, when left unchecked, feed the fire of anger, causing it to burn brighter and more destructively. The Stoics teach us that by breaking the cycle of judgment and recognizing that we are responsible for how we react to events, we gain the power to maintain our composure and act with wisdom, regardless of the circumstances. In practice, anger often arises from the conflict between what we expect or desire and what reality delivers. Whether it's a person cutting us off in traffic, a colleague taking credit for our work, or a friend failing to meet an agreement, we are faced with a choice. We can allow our anger to dictate our response, or we can choose a more measured, thoughtful reaction. Stoicism teaches that instead of falling into the trap of anger, we should seek to reframe the situation, ask ourselves whether our emotional response is based on an accurate understanding of the facts, and choose a response that aligns with our highest values. Stoic sages like Marcus Aurelius practiced self-reflection regularly even when anger flared. Instead of reacting impulsively, they paused and took the time to consider the situation with reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You cannot control others, but you can control how you respond." This simple statement encapsulates the Stoic ethos. While we cannot control the behavior of others, we always have control over our actions, attitudes, and responses. One of the key insights from Stoic philosophy is the idea that anger comes from the judgments we make about events and people, not from the events themselves. This is a crucial distinction because it places the power of anger back into our own hands. If anger is a reaction to a judgment, then by questioning and challenging that judgment, we can disarm the anger before it takes hold. For example, when someone insults us, we might be quick to judge them as disrespectful or malicious. But the Stoic approach is to ask, what if their behavior is a result of their own pain, misunderstanding, or insecurity? This shift in perspective helps us avoid becoming defensive or angry. It allows us to separate our ego from the situation and respond with patience and understanding. To put Stoic wisdom into practice and transform anger from a reactive force into a conscious choice, here are two powerful techniques to use in your daily life. When anger arises, the first thing you should do is pause, take a deep breath, and count to 10. This simple action creates a brief but essential moment of space between the stimulus, the thing that triggered your anger, and your response. In this moment, you regain control over your emotional state. As you pause, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? Often, the anger we feel is based on an assumption or interpretation of the situation. For example, we might tell ourselves, they disrespected me, or this isn't fair. These narratives are subjective, based on our personal views and expectations. The pause gives you a chance to question whether these assumptions are accurate or whether you are overreacting based on your emotional state. Once you gain this awareness, you can choose a more rational and balanced response, one that reflects your Stoic values rather than succumbing to an impulsive outburst. This technique is particularly useful in moments when anger feels overwhelming. Whether you're in a heated argument, dealing with a frustrating situation at work, or even just annoyed by something trivial, the 10-second pause creates enough mental space for you to regain control of your emotions. It helps you avoid escalating the situation or saying something in the heat of the moment that you'll later regret. By taking the time to reflect, you can respond with patience, clarity, and emotional intelligence rather than being swept away by the flood of anger. Most effective Stoic techniques for managing anger is to reframe the situation. Instead of jumping to conclusions or making quick judgments, try to see the situation from a different perspective. For example, instead of thinking, "They disrespected me," you could reframe the situation by saying, "They acted according to their own nature, based on their understanding and experience." This shift in perspective helps you detach from the ego and see the other person's behavior as a reflection of their limitations, not an attack on you. It reminds you that their actions are a result of their own beliefs, emotions, and circumstances, and they are not a direct reflection of your worth or value. By reframing the trigger, you also remove the emotional charge from the situation. You stop viewing the other person's actions as a personal affront and instead recognize that they are simply acting according to their own nature and circumstances. This recognition helps you respond with greater compassion and understanding rather than reacting with anger. It allows you to maintain your composure and choose a response that is measured, thoughtful, and aligned with your values. The Stoic approach to anger ultimately leads to a profound sense of inner freedom. When we realize that anger is a choice, not a reflex, we unlock the power to respond with calm and clarity in any situation. This practice of emotional mastery is liberating. Rather than being at the mercy of our emotions or external circumstances, we take back control over how we feel and act. We stop being slaves to our impulses and start living with intention. The freedom to choose our responses allows us to cultivate deeper peace, stronger relationships, and more authentic interactions with the world around us. Anger, when allowed to rule, can destroy relationships, cloud our judgment, and lead us down a path of regret. But when we master it, we open the door to greater emotional resilience, wisdom, and self-mastery. Through the simple yet powerful Stoic techniques of the 10-second rule and reframing the trigger, we can break free from the chains of anger and choose to respond in a way that reflects our true values, calmly, rationally, and with dignity. By doing so, we not only improve our own well-being, but also contribute to a more harmonious and understanding world. In conclusion, these truths are not for the faint of heart. They demand brutal honesty, relentless self-audits, and the courage to release societal scripts about masculinity. But herein lies the paradox. The pain of confronting these truths is dwarfed by the agony of avoiding them. As Seneca warned, life is long enough, if only it's all well invested. The choice is yours. Continue chasing illusions, or build a life anchored in Stoic clarity. The clock is ticking. If these truths resonated, leave a like. It's a silent pact to stop sleepwalking through life. Share with a man who needs this jolt of clarity. Subscribe for raw, actionable Stoic strategies to conquer chaos, master your mind, and live with purpose. The path is steep, but the view from the top is worth it. Stay grounded, stay unbreakable,